Hi everyone. Happy full moon. Well, full moon's coming up in 2 days, but it's almost here. I want to do a video on shadow work. I'm doing a 2-part series this Thursday about shadow work, and it's kind of a mixture of psychology, spirituality, and art mixed together. And I wanted to make this video for my clients or anyone who wants to further expand on the subject of shadow work. It is by far the most profound tool I've ever found in my journey. Coming from extreme trauma and abuse, this tool is profound for me, and that's why I'm guided to teach about it, because it completely changed my life for the better. And I'm just so inspired in the work that Carl Jung put into it. He's the one who not only found this type of work, but he coined the term shadow work, along with persona, introvert, extrovert, all kinds of terms. He coined all of them. He was a revolutionary psychiatrist, and he's a huge inspiration for me. So this video is also a thank you for him, wherever he may be. Okay, so a little bit about my journey. I definitely am aware of you create your own reality and you choose the situation you incarnate into for your life lesson and your soul's mission. Well, I chose 2 parents who were extremely abusive, and I've had every kind of abuse possible. So I was extremely shut down. I had the worst self-esteem up until like a year ago. I mean, it's still a struggle. It's nothing that is magic, but the amount of negative programming I received as a child in my upbringing was so intense that I couldn't even look in a mirror without utter disgust up until a couple years ago. I was raised in an environment that was violently abusive, a lot of mental programming. It was pretty much every single day of my life. I was called ugly, stupid, worthless. The only reason why I had you was, to do the chores. I don't ever remember getting hugs. I remember getting abused pretty much every day of my life, whether it was emotionally or physically or mentally. May have been sexually. I'm still processing a lot of stuff. And so another reason why I'm doing this video is we're all on a healing journey. The wounded healer, basically. So whatever in this lifetime that has been extreme trauma that you yourself have healed, that's most likely what you're going to help other people heal with, because like attracts like. And so if you're a vibrational match to these kinds of people throughout your life, it's kind of an indication that, okay, well, this is pretty much my mission. And so for me, I attract people who've dealt with extreme trauma and abuse, and drug addicts, because basically the root issue of being an addict of any kind is there's pain and suffering there that you're trying to numb or fill a void that you don't know how to fill. So I'm going to go over a little bit about trauma and childhood abuse and neglect, and sometimes complete emotional neglect is the worst kind of abuse there is, because emotions are everything. The emotion is how you create your own reality. So regardless if you were physically abused, emotional abuse, in my opinion, is by far the worst type of abuse and the hardest to heal. So basically my path unfolded as just realizing I was not in a good place. I mean, I started drinking when I was like 13, started smoking cigarettes, started hanging out with all the bad boys, just as an escape from this reality was so painful and so abusive that I looked for any excuse to get away. I actually moved out when I was 15. I just ran away with my boyfriend, and any excuse I could to get out of this household was a good excuse for me. Ever since I was a child, I'd run away all the time. I never wanted to be home. I wanted to be anywhere in the world. CPS was called at our house all the time because my parents would beat the shit out of each other in front of us. And I'm the oldest of 3 girls, by the way. And I'm about 5 years older than the other 2. So I was kind of like the protector, the oldest. I always made sure they were safe and in their rooms so they didn't have to witness the violence between my parents. My parents were both heavy alcoholics and drug users. And they were so out of their goddamn minds. I wondered why they chose to have children, but it's a pattern. That's what I see in the world. It's a pattern. It's an unconscious disease, basically. It's run rampant. And this is why I'm so passionate about psychology and shadow work, is because everywhere I look, there's trauma and neglect and abuse that they're passing on to their kids. So no one's choosing a conscious life, and then when you're unconscious of all your programming and in trauma and negative patterns, and then you choose to have children, well, guess what? Just by their very DNA, you're passing on those shadow traits and your light traits. So it's a huge deal. I'm noticing everybody, very, very few people, aside from, fellow light workers and the awakened ones, that are choosing to consciously face their darkness and let it go instead of repeating the cycle. So by you not healing your shadows, it's in your very DNA. It's there. So if you're an addict, a drug addict, and you have all this pain and trauma and abuse you've never dealt with, it's in your aura, it's in your very DNA, and then you choose to have children, guess what? Even if that child is never around you and has never met you in their entire lives, it is in their DNA. You've basically passed on that shadow to them. So I suggest everyone do their shadow work and heal their programming and their patterns and their traumas before you have children. That is the greatest gift you can give a child, is to heal yourself first. It's amazing what this work does. I mean, it's completely transcended my view of the world. And I can literally talk about shadow work all day long, but it is by far the most profound thing I've ever found on my journey thus far. So anyway, I'll go back to my childhood a little bit and my background, and I guess my path and how I found shadow work in my journey, and basically my purpose. This is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is studying and reading psychology books and healing my mindset and becoming more whole and loving the darker aspects. Because we all are light and dark. We cannot have one without the other, hence the moon in the background. The moon is darkness, femininity, receptivity, creativity, nurturing, Mother Earth. Dark is just another word for unconscious or lack of information, unaware. That's all dark is. It's not evil. It's not the devil. I mean, when we say we have darkness inside of us, well, it's kind of like we're both heaven and hell within ourselves. So it's like, which reality are you going to create? And 99% of the time I see around me, living in the city, unconscious behaviors, people living in hell. Nobody's happy. I'm looking around at people driving in the car next to me, and people are texting, and they just look so angry and sad, and they're carrying all this trauma with them, and these patterns and these negative programs and they haven't really had the awareness or the tools to look at them. So for me, I used to be extremely judgmental and be like, God, people are just so unconscious and stupid. When I had this huge awakening, I was just like, God, why doesn't everyone else get it? But then the more I grew and the more I developed wisdom and understanding and compassion, really, is they just don't have the tools or the awareness. That's all it is lack of information. So instead of being like, stupid humans, they're so unconscious of their behaviors and they're throwing their trash out the window and they're just so inconsiderate, me, this like vampirism. This, everybody speeds, everybody cuts you off, everybody needs to be first, everyone wants to be seen, everyone's dying inside. But it's just lack of awareness. It's just being unconscious. They're in the dark about information that can actually help them, and this is some of the information that I want to talk about today, coming from a background of extreme abuse and trauma. So anyway, back to my childhood. Basically, when I was 15, I moved out and I introduced my boyfriend at the time to meth. And I had no clue what it was, and I would, at this point, I didn't even care. I just wanted to numb out and try other things. So I tried it and I loved it. It was the most amazing, euphoric experience. For once, I felt love. For once, I felt free of the pain and the trauma. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a really fun experience for a few months. A few months quickly turned into 2 years. I used meth and cocaine for 2 years, from the age of, I think it was 15. It was like 15 or 16 to 17 or 18. It's kind of blurry. But yeah, I used it for 2 years, and I knew the whole time that I'm just having fun. It's mine to, and I always had a very strong mindset, and I always knew that I can quit at any time. But I was literally just having fun. What really got me to quit was I lived in an apartment with my boyfriend at the time, who was in and out of jail, and he started shooting up. And that's when I realized, wow, I was just having fun with it. I didn't want to go down this road. I mean, to me, when you shoot up, it's kind of like the point of no return. Like, there's no hope for you for a really long time, especially if you just start. It's like you're just dating a really hot woman who you have everything in common with. You love being around her. That's what I think shooting up is to people. It's like this most amazing euphoric experience of so I've heard. So anyways, so when I discovered that this person was shooting up, and I looked around me and I realized there was like tweakers staying over, like 10 people at my house that I had no clue who they were, and some of them were in their 40s with no teeth. And some of them were actually cooking it, where I was like, wow, I gotta get out of here. This is not my path anymore. I had fun. I had nightmares too, which I can talk about in another video about the dimensions, and definitely heaven and hell is right here, right now within yourself. And whatever's going on inside is a reflection of your external reality. So the fact that I was using meth, it was putting holes in my aura to where I was manifesting in my external reality demons. They were literally, we call them shadow people because apparently everybody on meth sees them. But basically your vibration is literally the lowest it can go. When you use meth, it's basically an equivalent to a portal for demons. You're literally hitting the demonic realms. And everybody using meth saw them and called them shadow people. And these shadow people would whisper things like, kill yourself, and they would get in your head and they would basically torture you. And basically I was tortured by these little demonic entities, and I had so many horrible trips to the point of complete hallucination. I would stay up for like 5 days at a time. I completely just hated who I was, and meth was an incredible escape. I mean, it doesn't get much more out of alignment than hitting the demonic realms. So anyway, again, when I kind of looked around me and realized, wow, there's like 10 tweakers living in my house, and just, I was like 80 pounds, and just, I looked disgusting, and just sunken in and skinny, and just black bags, and just, I looked like a freaking nightmare. And I just said, okay, I'm done. So I called my dad and I asked him if I could stay with him for a couple weeks, and I never told him why. He's always been very emotionally unavailable, and still to this day we don't really connect. He's not open, he doesn't speak, he's very quiet, we don't connect on any level. I love him to death, but at this point he was never really there for me. So I could never be like, hey Dad, I'm on meth, can I have some help, can I go to detox? No, I just said, can I stay with you for a couple weeks, because I'm thinking about moving out of my apartment, because me and Mitch are fighting, is all I said. Oops, I said the word. That's okay. I doubt he'll ever see this. But anyway, so I just packed my stuff and left, and I stayed at my dad's, and I remember sleeping for like 2 weeks straight. It was the worst horrific experience ever. I was sweating. I had no energy at all. Like, literally the only energy I had was to like get up and use the bathroom and go to the fridge and eat all this food. I just remember like just gorging myself. Just, my body was just craving sustenance and energy, and just, I was literally zapped dry for like 2 weeks, and it was horrible. I'd have like horrible nightmares. I remember sweating, like, and I remember my dad never said a word. Like, obviously there's something wrong. I'm sleeping for 2 weeks straight, never left the house once for 2 weeks. Didn't say anything. Didn't even say, are you sick? He just kind of, he knew what was going on. He knew, but he just didn't even want to confront it. He had such a hard time with just speaking his mind. And but anyway, so I got off meth and I never touched it again. And I remember seeing these people years later, and they're still using, and they were just so disgusting looking. And I'm like, God, I used to look like that. And I'm thankful I never smoked it, because my teeth are still nice. I used to snort it. And for years after that, I didn't have a sense of smell. And chemical smell was all I could smell, was that nasty chemical shit, because God knows what meth is made out of now. Back then it was pretty good. But now it's just like made in a bathtub, but still, even back then, God knows what was in it. So I had some really good times and some horrific freaking times. So the point of this whole story is I just replaced one addiction with another. I pretty much went from drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, tried coke, tried pills, tried meth, never did heroin, never will. But I just, throughout my life, I just kept replacing one addiction with another. Until I was about, I think it was 23, and at this point I was heavily drinking, and I had to go to the hospital for like I drank so much Jack Daniels with my friend that I worked with at the store, the adult shop I managed. And I had some infection. I forgot what it was called, but it was right here, and it burned so badly, and I was like coughing up blood, and it was, I mean, that's how much I was just taking shots and not giving a shit. And at this point I was drinking so much where I was not even affected. My tolerance level was so high that I could drink a whole bottle of Jack with a friend and drive home and get up the next morning and go to work and like do it all over again. And at this point, I mean, my environment was so terrible too. I was in between a strip club. I managed an adult shop, and the other one was a bar. So I was in between these really just negative environments, and constantly around just darkness and people who just drank and who were unconscious. And I was definitely unconscious of anything. Definitely asleep to my own magic and power, because I was just trying to escape the pain. So anyway, when I had to go to the hospital, and I forgot what this infection thing was called, and the lady kind of went in the room, she shut the door behind her, and she said, "Honey, do you drink a lot?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Honey, you're gonna die if you keep this up." And she had to give me one of those like cocktail things that numb, when you drink it, it numbs everything, so they can like take x-rays and stuff. And just, she really had this heartfelt conversation with me and said, "You know, you're way too young and you have so much life ahead of you. You really should stop this behavior, and, you know, there's counselors for you, and obviously you're in pain," and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, wow, that really made me think. And I quit drinking for a few months, and then when I got better, I just kind of started the cycle all over again. And it wasn't until I was probably like 23 when I quit drinking, or 23 or 24. And I'm about 28 now. And so even if I wasn't drinking, I always felt like this giant void in my heart. And I was just replacing one thing with another. And so if I wasn't drinking, I was having a lot of sex. Or if I wasn't having sex, I was smoking a bunch of cigarettes or smoking weed, or just always, or working, workaholic. Just trying to I was running so fast and going nowhere, but I was running away from myself. And it wasn't until one of the customers that came in the adult shop that I worked at, he told me his story, and it was so profound, and it was so like eye-opening, where I was like, whoa. Well, this guy has been sober for 20 years, and he actually killed someone in a drunk driving accident. He was so wasted, he killed some kid on a bike. And he went to jail for like 10 years. And it was completely like, that was a huge, I mean, the guilt he went through and the darkness, and he went through 3 marriages, and I mean, he would do crack binges and meth binges, and this guy was just fucked. And then just, it took killing someone and going to jail for this awakening of, holy shit, like, I gotta change something. I'm in pain, this is not working. I gotta look at myself, I gotta look at my stuff. And he said one of the first books he ever read was called The Road Less Traveled. And so actually, we were talking because we had a lot in common, because we were both, you know, ex-addicts. For me, it was like I was becoming an ex-addict. I was still drinking at the time. But he comes in a few days later, and he gives me the book, The Road Less Traveled. And I, up until this point, have never finished a book. Ever. I never liked any of the books that were in school. No, all of them bored me. School bored me. I dropped out when I was like 15. I got my GED, but just, I never was interested in reading. I didn't even think I could read that well. I was extremely intelligent, just nothing interested me. So that was actually the first book I ever finished, and that was about when I was 19 or 20 years old. So this is kind of, I'm backtracking a little bit, so sorry, the timelines are kind of, it's just, I don't really go back there anymore, because I'm such in a wonderful place, and I feel whole and healthy and balanced more than I could ever. I mean, I just feel so amazing. That's another reason why I want to share this work. And this also ties into my spiritual journey. The Wounded Healer. So after that book, I was like, wow, because it was a book about psychotherapy. It was by a psychotherapist who wrote a book about his experiences with his clients, and of course didn't divulge their names. But it was about all the different cases of people with trauma and addiction and programming, and it was just such a profound book, and it made me just think about, wow, I'm this way because of my upbringing. Wow, I'm really fucked up, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be another statistic. I don't want to be another drain on society and drain on people. I don't want to live this way. I want to get better. I really want to heal myself. I'm in so much pain and I hate myself, and I want to experience self-love. I want to love myself. I don't know how, but I want to. And from then on, I just kept manifesting people that would give, like, plant seeds. You know, I wasn't awake yet, but they were like, I would manifest people that were like, hey, you should try this, or hey, you're really good at this, or hey, you know, they pointed me in the right direction. And about a couple years later, I found some more self-help books, and I remember one of the exercises was write 20 things that you love about yourself. And I remember this as like clear as day, and I'm like 22, 23 years old, and I still hated myself. And I wrote one thing down. That's all I could think of. And in the exercise in the book, it said, if you can't think of anything that you love about yourself, give this list to your friend and have them write things that they love about you. So I was like, I remember that day. I was like, Ashley, so I'm having a hard time writing things that I love about myself. Can you maybe write some stuff down for me? And she's like, yeah, of course, that's easy. And she, like, right then and there was like, and gave it back to me later. And I didn't read it till I got home, and it was just, I was reading it, and it was like, Morgan is hilarious. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. Morgan is beautiful. And I was like, ugh. I mean, the programming of being called ugly especially was so strong in me. I mean, my mother every single day of my life, not just once a day, but like 20 times a day, that we would cross paths. She'd be like, God, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're worthless, blah, blah, blah. Which is hilarious now that I look back on it, because I look just like her. So I was mirroring back to her, herself, and she hated herself. She was in so much pain that she projected that onto me. But when I was a kid, I didn't know any better. I thought I was actually hideous. But I was an ugly teenager, I can admit that. The ugly duckling syndrome, yeah, that's definitely me. I was a really ugly teenager. I was a cute kid, and then teenage years, I was really not an attractive teenager. And then slowly I kind of blossomed, and you know, and then anyway, one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, damn, beautiful. And not only that, because I was one of the ugly kids, I really understand what it's like to not feel pretty, to not love yourself. So now I have the best of both worlds. Not only am I beautiful inside, I'm beautiful outside, because I learned to love myself inside first and not what I look on the outside. So it's kind of a manifestation of that, is your inner beauty shines outwardly. So, I mean, now I'm very thankful for that lesson in being a really ugly teenager, and for my mother calling me ugly every day of my life. So anyway, back to the programming was so strong though. I mean, if you were called ugly by your parent ever since you were, I don't know, born, what are you going to think when you look in the mirror? You're going to think you're the most hideous fucking creature you've ever seen. If your own mother is calling you that, then it must be true, right? So I remember reading this list that my friend Ashley gave me, and she's like, Morgan's beautiful. And I was like, oh, Morgan's really strong. Morgan will be a really good leader someday. You know, all these things that I was like, whatever, this isn't me. Who the hell is she writing about? This isn't me. Whatever. Yeah. And so in the book it said, after you write down the 20 things, write them on note cards and say them 3 times a day. First thing in the morning, sometime in the afternoon, and then right before you go to bed. And when you say them, look in the mirror. And I remember the first time I took the note card and I looked in the mirror and I was like, Morgan is beautiful. And I was still like, oh, this is bullshit. This is not me. I can't do this. And I remember just throwing the cards like, this is stupid. This is not going to work. Yeah, saying these cards are going to magically fix my fucked up mindset. Right. Wrong. So I threw them, and I didn't really touch them for a couple weeks, and something just kept saying, just do it. Just do it. And I was like, okay. So I started doing them. And I did them every day, at least twice a day, sometimes only once a day, but twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. I would say them in the mirror. I'd say it every day, and I think it was, it took a long time because my programming was so strong that it was like the 3rd month, 4th month, 5th month, where I just remember that feeling of reading it and being like, I am beautiful. Oh wait, I don't feel resistance in my body. I think that I believe that now. Ooh, Morgan is I am powerful. I am strong. I am a good leader. All these things that I had so much resistance to when I first started reading them, that I realized that, wow, affirmations are powerful. Words are powerful. Thoughts mixed with intention and words claiming something are powerful. Wow, this actually does work. There's something to this affirmation stuff and this self-help stuff and healing your mindset and psychology. Wow, there's something to it. I think it works. So then from there on out, 1,000 doors opened, and I couldn't stop reading books. I couldn't stop reading psychology books, and then I started reading spiritual books. I started reading metaphysical books, astrology books, and I slowly went on this awakening journey. And then I manifested a woman who had a school called School of Inner Wisdom. It was basically a psychic school, and I laugh now because she was in a wheelchair, and all her students were like mutants. So it was kind of like X-Men. And she was Professor Xavier, however you say it, and I felt like Dr. Jean Grey because I felt like the Phoenix. I felt like, oh my God, this woman is exactly who I've been looking for my entire life. I've always felt like a freak. I've always felt like I was from the stars. I always knew that there were spirits. I have tons and tons and tons of stories about paranormal stuff and alien stories and ghost stories. I grew up in a haunted house, and I always knew that there was other things to this reality than just the physical. I knew in my heart of hearts, and no one around me had answers. And finally, I manifested a woman, finally by the age of 21. Or was it 22? I don't even remember. But anyway, I finally manifested a woman who understood me on a level that no one's ever understood me, ever. And she was also an Aquarius. We had such a soul bond. I was so thankful to meet this woman, and she taught me so many things. She taught me how to open up my gifts, and she taught me for once to focus on the light, because I was just born into a situation of such darkness and trauma that's all I've experienced the first 20 years of my life. I'm not going to go into details about my trauma because we all have trauma, but the amount of suffering that I have endured in this life and many others through my awakening journey and past life regression is tremendous. And the fact that I'm even alive today is very tremendous. I've had 3 near-death experiences, some of which are OD'd on drugs. I have so many horrible, traumatic experiences that I will write a book. I'm actually working on a space so I can take the time to write a book about my healing journey, because I've experienced some profound experiences that have gained a lot of inner wisdom, and I'm very thankful for them. At the time, I definitely was not, but now I am. Anyway, this woman she taught me so many things. It was incredible. I didn't even know this could exist. A psychic school. What? It's like a dream come true. She taught me like what a chakra was, how to balance your chakras, how to basically visualize in your mind's eye and open up your third eye, to basically your inner sight. And she taught us like mind tricks, like psychic tricks. Like she had us get 10 of the same dice and visualize the number that you want the dice to roll on, and roll all 10, and the more you focus on your third eye of what number you want it to, the more eventually, the more we practice, all 10 dice would be exactly what you visualize. So if I visualize all ones, they would be 10 ones. It was incredible. I was like, wow. She taught us the power of focus and intention. She was a great spiritual teacher, and I was basically like her star pupil. We became really good friends until it was time for me to go. I realized that this woman was sort of vampiric, and because I'm really good at, I guess, selling who I am and what I know, a lot of her students became people that were friends of mine at work, because I was so passionate about her and her work, and I met other light workers on my journey. I was like, oh my God, you have to meet this woman. She's got a psychic school. And so I was really good at bringing her other students, which means bringing her money, to the point where I noticed some vampiric energy going on, and I, being naive and just awakening on my journey, that's the thing about being a naive when you're first on the spiritual journey. You're so open that you'll accept anything, any information. You'll take any information. And she was pretty manipulative, and she imprinted some pretty negative programming on me as well, about just stuff that I found out later on in my journey were completely false, and she was using them as an excuse to have me need her as her spiritual guide and her therapist, because she had a degree in psychology and hypnotherapy, and she was very manipulative in the end, I found out. But she taught me a lot, and she was the first teacher I ever had, so I will definitely take the good with the bad. So, and I honor her and her journey as well. So anyway, and then from there, I met a woman who I worked with at a health food store. I wanted to learn about holistic health. I was sick of eating garbage. I mean, I grew up eating TV dinners and Hot Pockets, and I've always been this thin, but it's a miracle that I didn't weigh 400 pounds or my health was okay. But at the same time, when you raise in vibration, you're no longer an energetic match to such dense foods. So because I was unawake, I was able to eat dense foods without being really affected. At least I thought. Anyway, so I worked at a health food store. I hated it because I was a cashier and the customers were extremely rude. But anyway, I met a woman that I really connected with who was a witch, and I always resonated with the whole Wiccan, witchy thing. I've always felt very magical. I've always felt very powerful with my mind and visualizations and creating my reality, and very, very active imagination, and I have a very vivid inner world. That's why I love meditation. It's like I get to hang out with my spirit guides and be in this complete vivid inner world that I would love to experience on the external, which I do in other ways, but hang out with dragons, not yet, but someday I will meet a dragon in my external reality. Anyway, so this woman that I really connected with, we were kind of like witch sisters, and we started studying the occult stuff together, and she introduced me to her Reiki master. And within the first time meeting her, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to learn energy work. I felt like it was my calling. I felt like I did it for lifetimes. It was just so natural when it almost felt like she unblocked and let go of these like seals because when it's like she activated me. And I remember that day very clearly. It was like this blast of energy came out of the centers of my palms when she activated me, when I got attuned for level 1. And I was just so, like, I just felt in that moment so freaking magical and powerful. Like, yes! Yes, I can use my power for good. I am powerful. I can heal people, yeah. I was just so excited. But, you know, level 1 is no. You work on plants and animals and yourself first. No people. I was like, okay. So I started working with the plants, and I would send them I love you energy, and I would practice the different colors and the different chakras, and basically channeling source energy into the different chakras and balancing them. And so I quickly fell in love with working with the chakra system. I still use this working with the chakra system every single day of my life, whether it's toning or crystals or creative visualization or energy work. But I do Reiki on myself every single night to just really, it's kind of like getting a cosmic bath. And I've, been creative with it, and this is what we call magic, is just visualization mixed with intention. So when I'm tapping into source energy and I'm using different colors to basically clear my aura, I use a lot of like purple transmutation energy. I use a rainbow flame. I visualize a giant rainbow flame around your aura, and just basically transmuting any and all stuck energy. I don't really use the cutting cord thing that a lot of people do in the spiritual community, because I believe that we're just walking transmutators, and if you just believe that people can't cord into you and suck you dry, then it won't happen. Because it's, again, spirituality is all about belief systems, and there's a million trillion ways to be spiritual, and we all have different beliefs, and especially in the spiritual community. And so that's just one of the tools I use. It's just, I just have that intention of, I am a walking transmutation aura, and nothing can hook onto me. But anyway, back to the Reiki. And so then I was totally inspired by the Reiki, and I worked on my own animals and plants, and it just felt very natural and fun to me, really. And making energy balls that I learned in psychic school, and I learned distance healing and making balls of love and light for people that need healing, or tuning in to, hey, who would need some healing energy? And then you kind of get like, your intuition's like, well, your grandma's feeling sad. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I would visualize a giant ball of like emerald green love energy, and I would just mix it with some gold or some purple, and I would just build it, and you can feel it when you're building that energy in your hands. It's like this, you can feel the resistance. It's like it's heavy, and then you can it's kind of like you lift it up too. You can feel it, and then I throw it, and then how I know it works is I visualizing them receiving the energy. Like, you can throw it, but where are you throwing it? I feel like what really seals the deal is when you visualize them actually receiving the energy. And then you're, and it's proof that it works, because when you send people energy like that, healing energy, they'll call you. Hey, I was just thinking about you for some reason. I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder why. Or they'll text you and be like, hey, I thought of you today. And be like, ha ha ha. So it's more proof that magic's real, and we're not separated by time and space. We're all one, and thoughts are powerful. And it's a whole other episode on thoughts, and I mean, people with the whole beliefs of psychic attacks, and because thoughts are damn powerful. So if you keep sending hate energy to someone, you're literally like psychically attacking them. But if you're not a match to psychic attacks, then it won't really be in your reality. But that's another tool that I learned on my journey, because I was a match to psychic attacks at one point. And then I learned that, no, we're just walking transmutators, and everybody has negative thoughts all the time, and it doesn't affect me. Especially being a server in a bar, lots of negativity in there. Anyway, so I'm kind of going way off the track of shadow work, but the point of this video really was about my trauma and a little bit about who I am and my path. I have many stories. I can talk for hours and hours, but I should probably cut this now and do another video about shadow work later, maybe even tomorrow. But yeah, it's a wonderful time to do shadow work. It's Mercury retrograde. It's a really good time to go inward. It's when Mercury is the planet of communication, so it's when it appears that it's going backwards, but it's really an illusion. It's kind of like when you're sitting in a car and you're getting ready to start your car, and then someone right next to you in the garage is backing up. It kind of looks like you're going forward, but they're just backing up and you're not moving. It's the same thing with the Mercury retrograde. It's an illusion. So it's a really good time to go inward and just kind of get rid of all the chaos, because technology's gone haywire, because it has to do with communication. So it's not a good time to really travel on a plane. Communication's going to be way off. Someone's going to try to call you, it goes straight to voicemail, and it normally never does that, and your text doesn't go through, or your computer shuts down. Just information and communication is haywire. So instead of being in that drama, kind of remove yourself from it if you can, and go in and spend more time going inward and figuring out, what are my next steps on my journey? What can I get rid of? What is an illusion in my life right now? And kind of get more clarity on your next steps in life and who you are. And so anyway, shadow work is an excellent time. And Mercury retrograde, is an excellent time to do shadow work. Another great time is like winter time, when autumn is turning to winter, because winter is about hibernation and going inward and being reflective. Full moons are a great time to do some shadow work, because full moon energy is about letting go and releasing all that doesn't serve you. So any shadows or patterns you want to get rid of, it's an excellent time for that. But yeah, Mercury retrograde happens about 4 times a year. So there's different times that are more powerful than others to do shadow work. But you can do shadow work every single day of your life, even for 5 minutes. You can do a ritual. You can write about it. You can, it's endless about shadow work. So I'm going to do another video, because I'm cutting this. This video has been way too long. So again, I'll go back to my story, tell more stories about my past and how it correlates to my journey on how I found shadow work and psychology and my spiritual journey. And I love sharing. So I look forward to this other video, and thank you so much for listening for this long. Alright, I'll see you soon, you guys. Love you.